I'm Jamie O'Kane, CPA, Small Business Advanced Tax Planning and Compliance Extraordinaire, and this is the Abundant Beans Podcast, the podcast that takes my love for learning what makes people tick while digging into the good, bad, and ugly of small business ownership. We strive to give you the insight that only those in the trenches of being and working with entrepreneurs can provide. Yeah, I know. We'd like to welcome to the podcast today Casara Andre, DVM. Casara is the founder of Veterinary Cannabis Education and Consulting and is dedicated to providing practical education and harm reduction training to the emerging veterinary cannabis field. Oh man, speaking out loud stuff. Dr. Andre firmly believes that scientific curiosity can and will open unexpected, exciting, and hugely beneficial opportunities within this field, but also that scientific rigor and scrutiny must never be neglected. I love that.
It's kind of a mouthful.
It's great, though. So I can't wait to talk about cannabis for animals, but first, what was your first job?
Doing paperwork for my dad.
That's awesome. What kind of company did he have?
He is an entomologist, and he still currently does the lawn care portion, but he was also doing farm care at the time.
Wow.
So a combination of the two.
Background in science.
Yeah.
I love that. So how did you decide to focus on cannabis for the veterinary field?
That was a long, convoluted journey. Totally unexpected too,
yeah.
right? Where you end up in life is like, that's never what I would have thought.
How did I get here?
Never would have suspected. So I worked for the military as a veterinarian for 10 years and just recently resigned my commission. While I was in the military, loved working dog medicine, just like sport medicine in human side. But the biggest thing that stood out to me was I was really missing some big pieces in my toolkit. The accidents are training injuries, right? They don't need surgery. They don't need these really big, heavy, powerful pharmaceuticals. They need something else, something to help the body heal in between on its own. So that was really what got me into acupuncture, rehab, massage, kind of those types of modalities. And cannabis just fits into those really beautifully. The reason we added cannabis to that was our community of veterinarians was really lost, really wondering what to do about it. So I kind of had time and opportunity to really research it, and then it just fit beautifully into the rest of what I was practicing.
So you implemented veterinary cannabis in the military.
I would say that's where I first started looking for a piece that was missing.
Oh, that's interesting.
Cannabis really wasn't a thing at the time, right? I was even in Colorado for a couple of years before we legalized, and just it didn't have enough of a push for people to really pay attention to it early enough. And then it started to just be overwhelmingly, we need to figure out what's going on.
Yeah. So I just kind of want to talk about that. So, we see cannabis becoming huge in humans. When did people start applying it to the animals and going, if it works in this way for me?
Yeah, that's such an interesting question. I don't know that we have an answer to that, but I would say anyone who's connected to an animal and has experienced cannabis in a healing way for themselves automatically makes that leap of, I feel better. I want my animal to feel better. That's just our culture around animals now. They're very much family members. They're very much just part of us. And so I think that makes a very easy leap too. Helped me. Yeah. I want to give it a try.
Can I give it to my animal for... Yeah. So what are some of the biggest obstacles and issues in prescribing cannabis for animals?
Yeah, well, that's kind of a loaded question.
Like the big question.
So let's actually do a little bit of background for that one first. So
definitely.
Prescription is actually a word that we have to do some pretty semantic care around. And so the reason for that is cannabis as a whole, it has two specific subtypes, so hemp and marijuana. So marijuana is still a Schedule I substance per the DEA. So I have a DEA license. Most veterinarians do. So it means that I can't prescribe cannabis because it's on a Schedule I list, and I can prescribe anything that's 2 through 5. Oh, okay. So just kind of knowing like what that word prescribe means, it entails that it's on a specific list somewhere that I can give out to a patient. And then hemp side is not a controlled substance anymore, and so you actually can't prescribe something that's not on the DEA list, and so you don't prescribe hemp because it's not on a list, and you can't prescribe.
Can we suggest?
Yes. Okay. Suggest, advice, guidance, education, all those. We just don't use the word prescribe.
All right, I'm going to
mark that one off.
I did.
The other one that's really tricky is recommend.
Mm-hmm.
In states like Colorado that have medical laws, they've specifically written into policy that a physician can get around that same prescription sort of shenanigans by saying, I can write you a recommendation. So if I was your physician, I could write you, I think it's a good idea for you to have cannabis. You take that to the state. They give you a cannabis card. You take it to the dispensary. But that wasn't written to policy for veterinarians, so I can't make a recommendation either. So those two words are my own.
So that's one of the dichotomies we see a lot is that, a lot of the laws are applied to human.
Yeah, all cannabis
human
laws
medicine,
are written for humans.
But then veterinarians we want to.
Yeah. We're trying pretty hard to get just everyone to think of mammalian physiology or practitioners versus physicians and veterinarians. Prescribers is another good term. So it's just kind of what your mindset is.
Because a lot of the applications are similar.
Right? Yeah, we're finding that it is mammalian, that the physiology is the same.
And the human medical field learns a lot from the veterinary field.
Absolutely. Every study that's done has a animal safety trial before it. So we actually have a lot of information. It's mostly in rats and mice and lab animals, but we can extrapolate really, really well. And we are starting to have some studies in animals, but it's mostly humans that are doing the research for us. We're just watching from a distance.
Of course.
Usually it's animals who get the testing done first and then it's applied to humans. This one's opposite.
Oh, that's
humans are doing all the research.
That's really interesting. I didn't realize that. So it does make sense because a lot of the drugs and stuff are tested on animals, making sure they're safe for people. So cannabis is the opposite.
Humans are just our petri dish in this instance.
That's awesome. They're the lab rats. It's like kind of our turn.
Yes.
Right? At this point, it's our turn. So what are some of the practical applications of cannabis for pets?
The easy answer is anything we see it in humans. We really are finding out that it is mammalian. So if it works for humans, it's going to work at least similarly in animals for what we know at the moment. There are some species differences we have to kind of pay attention to, but pain is the biggest one. Like that's sort of knock it out of the park, easy to see benefit in neurology type conditions, so seizures, neurogenic pain, that type of thing. Really, really amazing there. Most people try to use it for behavior, and that's my passion in the behavior aspect of it. But it's really tough because there's so many environmental factors that play into that, as well as like neurotransmitters that are out of sync and all of this physiology piece. There's also so many environmental things that play a part. So behavior is my love, but it's also a tough area.
So can you talk about some of the behavior stuff that you're seeing and how you help somebody figure out what are the factors?
Yeah, I would love to. That's my
talk about it all day. Let's do
it. So again, a lot of what we are experimenting with in animals comes from what's working in humans. So cannabis has shown some amazing benefits in helping people through PTSD, emotional trauma, anxiety disorders, any of those conditions. So when we look at those conditions in animals, we see there's at least some similarities. We don't know exactly how animals process memory. We kind of can make some assumptions like he looks anxious. We don't really know that that's what's going on in their brains, but we can sort of assume. So when we think about an anxiety case, so let's do like a shelter, an animal who's just been adopted from a shelter, all negative interactions with humans up to this point, just very topsy-turvy, doesn't have a place, no place where they feel at home. Cannabis does some really interesting things in their physiology. So it works both on the endocannabinoid receptors, which we can talk about that whole system in a second if you want to. It's really, really cool. Yeah, but also works on serotonin receptors, dopamine receptors. So often in pharmaceuticals, we're trying to modulate those systems, serotonin, to feel a little bit more, I have resources, dopamine reward.
Different drugs or whatever.
Yeah, as well as also working on the pain systems, so inflammation. So when you put all those together, you suddenly put that animal in a state that they are most ready to believe their environment might be good. Does that make sense? It's kind of like a lot of caveats, but it's instead of the only option is that this world is horrible.
Oh yeah.
It just kind of changes that paradigm to say, well, maybe something isn't as bad as I think it is. Controlling pain, stimulating serotonin, as well as how the endocannabinoid system works. It's really much easier to put some training on that animal when they're have cannabis on board, desensitize, expose to some stimuli they would have been afraid of before, and then kind of, oh, that wasn't as bad. And then they take that learning forward, and next time they encounter that stimulus, they're like, I got this.
So
I totally got
it helps
this.
rewire.
Yes.
It helps rewire their brains.
Yes, absolutely.
It helps rhabdomyelin. It helps, you know.
So it repairs all the cells just as one of their functionalities, but it also has this very amazing intracellular communication. So particularly in the nervous system, it is the connection between neurons where it says, I got your message. You don't have to keep sending it, or we don't need to be this afraid, kind of settle down. If you thought of the one thing endocannabinoid system does, and you did homeostasis, just balance, that would be, you'd be right. Like that is the system that makes our bodies and all of our animals' bodies be in balance with the environment. Isn't that cool?
This is really cool.
It's amazing.
So talk about the endocannabinoid.
Yep.
Thank you.
One more
I'm never going to be able to say that.
It's fun to say once you got it. Because there's so many N's in there. Endocannabinoid, yeah.
All right. The one time.
That was your one.
That's a lot of words. So we innately have these systems that interact with cannabis.
Yes. So actually all vertebrates do. Anything that has a spine has an endocannabinoid system, but I'm
just like mind blown over here, guys. I'm just like
but we understand mammalian ECS much better. So if you see endocannabinoid system pieces in another animal, you can't automatically assume they work the same.
You can't really apply
right. They might, but we don't. You can't make that jump for sure. But across mammals, we're pretty confident.
So what does that system do then?
It really is our system of homeostasis. So if you thought about all that we kind of know in science now, cardiovascular, musculoskeletal, respiratory, all these subsystems that we know pretty well, like subsystems, what we're finding out is that cannabis or the endocannabinoid system is sort of this dashboard on top. So we can adjust the ECS, and the ECS will bring all these subsystems into balance. So its role is making sure all the systems in the body work well together. Like if you had a sound mixer dashboard, like turn that one up a little bit, turn that one down a little bit.
Bass.
A little bit. Yep, exactly.
A little less treble.
Yep.
That's amazing.
Isn't that so cool? So
I am mind blown right now.
If you think about, again, an animal, let's do the anxiety situation. Going into new puppy in the house, right? Like, oh my gosh.
We can talk about this later
terrible.
Because this is like the thing I'm thinking about doing in my life right now.
And that for the older animal, especially if they're kind of senior, that's been their home for forever. Like, I want a puppy in the house. Like, what's going on here? When you work with cannabis in some specific ways, it allows that body to adjust to changes in the environment because its job is that regulation piece. It can say, all right, older animal, you need to be a little bit more interactive. You should be interested. You should be puppy. You should be a little calmer. Like it just really
kind of
helps.
turns down that fear response.
Yeah.
That's really, really cool. I'm just, oh, wow. Okay, cool. That's a lot. That has a lot of applications.
Absolutely. It is and will be as revolutionary as when we discovered the vaccine or antibiotics. Like it is the next tier of what medicine and science needs to know to go as far as we are now in terms of what we know. That again is going to be mediated by the ECS. Like what we know about it is mind blowing, absolutely incredible.
And so, were you saying that all of this is being done in Israel?
So Israel has a huge research, just lots and lots of people who are researching it just because of some of the laws. So it's a little bit harder in the US to research the marijuana side of cannabis, a little bit starting to be easier on the hemp side. So it really just depends on what the country's laws are. But Israel has some amazing research comes out of Israel. They were the ones who first isolated the molecules in the cannabis plant that interact with our endocannabinoid system. Canada, UK, US has their own. So it's just that there's so many countries investing a lot of research dollars into this that the information is coming so fast.
That is so cool because, as it became legalized, and we see this in Colorado the most because we were kind of almost the first state. So we've seen a lot of more research being done, here.
Yeah, absolutely.
But it's really awesome to know that other places have already done.
And everyone has a different approach to it. Like in the US, we tend to focus on observational research just because our laws are still a little bit hard to navigate. So what happens when a parent decides to use this for their child? Okay, let's just watch and then we'll get lots of data from that. Israel in particular is doing a lot of molecule research. So kind of pulling apart all the molecules they can absolutely find, what it does, and then kind of pulling them out. Yeah.
That's really cool. I'm fascinated.
So am I.
I love it. Well, obviously. So hold on. I've got questions and margins over here. So your program, so you have a program where you train
Yes.
So can you talk about your certification program within the veterinary cannabis?
Yeah.
Because we do see a lot of stagnation with the vet techs. Whether
there's just kind of a ceiling.
Certified.
Yeah.
I mean, there's nowhere to go other than what could be a vet.
Yeah. But a lot of, people make that career direction for specific reasons of being a vet, being a tech. Like it has just a different kind of thing that you want to do with it. And it's not necessarily like what they want to do.
Yeah. They like being on the support side.
Yeah, and are amazing at it, which is why they're so perfectly placed for cannabis care, because there's so much husbandry. There's so much give a little bit. How did it work? Let's change this. Like just really fine tuning that care. And so their technicians are just amazing at it.
So are they running their own businesses or are they working within practices?
So sometimes their clinics will send them and, that sometimes now we'll have like a dental specialist technician or a fear-free specialist or someone who just kind of has this area of specialty. So we see some clinics sending their technicians to their classes and then setting them up in the practices. If you have a cannabis question, this person can answer it for you.
Yeah.
And then some of them are setting up their own businesses and doing consulting with other companies, other clinics. A lot of the cannabis companies are looking for medical insight for pets. And so they're hiring some of our graduates to give them veterinary medicine.
That is so cool.
Like don't put xylitol in your product. Like just like really important stuff.
But xylitol's not good. I know.
Don't do that. But it's such a human industry, right? There's not any of that inkling of animal safety, like let's mix it in chocolate, let's put xylitol in it, let's put all this flavoring.
Create some edibles.
They're thinking human and not necessarily animal.
That's really, really cool. So the program provides. So can you just talk about? So it's for vet techs.
Yes.
And
so
can
it
you
is.
Just talk about like what the program provides and how you help people learn. And
so this is actually a kind of big change point for us. So we've been teaching it for a year and a half, and currently it's 6 weeks, live webinars, and then an exam and case studies they do on their own. It's become so much information that the teacher just talks straight for 2 hours. Like it's just so much to try to get through. It's just like, oh my gosh. So in January, we're actually switching to more of a 3-month course with a lot of self-paced sort of watch these, read these articles on your own, and then still the live discussions, but more article review and questions and cases. So we're excited about kind of the curriculum change, and I think it'll be really nice. But then it lets us have more time to talk about how do you work with a clinic? How do you talk to your vet about? How do you actually get this into practice?
Yeah, because it's one thing to have that info.
Right.
It's a whole nother to like
and it's also also hard for techs a lot of times. They're not often in the position where they know more about a topic than anybody else in their clinic. So there's also a lot of like communication training and just confidence training of something. Say it.
That's super
like people want to hear what you have to say. So speak up.
Yeah, I love really cool. that there's so many veterinarians that are sending their techs and they're just like, we need this kind of person and this kind of person because it adds value.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's huge value add to the patients and the culture of their.
And there's such a safety aspect too. There's so many iffy products and nasty products out there. Like even if a clinic doesn't really want to mess with cannabis, they're just kind of on the fence about it. Even if they could do just a little bit of harm reduction training, no xylitol. Like even those little things, so many pets would be a lot safer. So there's lots of ways clinics can kind of dabble in it without going full force, and having that technician that just has information for pet parents is a really good place to start.
Yeah, I think that's super interesting. I mean, just having a handout that says, here's the things to look for.
Yeah, these might be in your product. Make sure you're researching it, read the ingredients list. Like if it has a lot of THC, don't start too high. Make sure you work up. Just like really little basic things.
Yeah, it's just basic dosing and basic. That's really cool. Yeah. And kind of monitoring too.
Absolutely.
Especially if you have, somebody to talk to, then you can be like, well, it did, but it didn't.
Yeah. And there's so much that we don't know about it that it's kind of that safety first. Make sure that we're not doing any harm. And so what are we watching for? Did something go wrong? Did the blood work change?
Yeah.
Like that's a big piece of if we don't know about a molecule, making sure we're monitoring effectively for it.
That's really cool. Okay, so let's talk about products. So there are so many products.
There's so many products.
Every time I talk to somebody, they have like somebody else that's creating a product or podcast that went up today, they have their product that they're working on right now. So how do you guys help people choose? I know like safety is number one, but what are some of the considerations when picking a product? I mean, not even for yourself, maybe for yourself, but also for your pets.
Well, what's nice about it is that it is mammalian. So a lot of the things that we're talking about apply if you are picking it for yourself. And sometimes that's the only way we can try it. If
Right.
well, let me see how it makes me
see
feel.
if I like it.
I'll give it.
Let me see if I have seizures.
There's a lot of people who will like try it on their spouse first and then give it to their animal. Like that's just, we love our animals so much.
We sure do. We sure do.
One of the easiest ways to sort of evaluate a product is to ask for their laboratory testing. Okay. So that is a very clear line in the sand of what a company knows they should be doing, or if they have no clue of kind of what they should be looking out for. So the industry term for that is a COA, or a certificate of analysis. And every product should have one. Whether they're easy to get or not is a different question. But if you ask for one and a company says, no, you can't see it, for me, that's automatically like a red line. There are lots of companies who are doing such a good job. They're very honest. They're transparent. They're very upfront. Exactly. It's not really worth that potential harm, potential contamination, and there's many companies who will do a good job. So always ask for a COA first, and then once you have that, that's what's actually going to give you the breakdown of the molecules that are in the product. So that helps you pair it with the condition you're trying to treat. That's really, really important. We used to think it was just cannabis product is a cannabis product, right? Like,
but we have there's different molecules, different applications.
There's over
it's really cool.
600 molecules the cannabis plant
Holy
makes.
Cow!
Yeah, and over 180 of them are cannabinoids. So they bind to these like endocannabinoid system. So when you think about just the numbers of those, it's mind blowing. So if you don't know your molecules.
You said molecules, I'm thinking like, there's like 10. Like in my mind, there's like 10 little bubbles.
Isn't that incredible?
Yeah.
There's like over 600 of them. And some of them we don't even know that well. Some of them just have number names because we haven't classified them well enough.
Number 245.
Yeah. But it also means that that's one of the reasons we have to be really careful. We are assuming that all the molecules are beneficial. Like we don't see any, cannabis is so safe to work with. We rarely see side effects unless someone gives way too much or inappropriate. But we don't know that. And so as like true scientists, we have to say, well, we think it's good, but we also need to really research all of them. So I think it's important that we're being careful on both sides. Like one of the reasons that kind of line in my intro is really important to me is we have to have the scrutiny on both sides. We can't shut our eyes because we don't want to know about it. But then we also have to be willing to find something bad in the thing we like. Do you know what I mean?
No,
like
totally.
You have to look at both sides.
It's just like, the supplement industry. I think we can like draw comparisons because a lot of the time
food,
anything, we don't know what's in it. But if it's something that, has the research and we know how to apply it, it doesn't make sense to not go do it. That's a key one.
Yeah. Right? Know how to apply it is big.
Yeah. So you guys have other resources, right, for cannabis applications. So do you guys have like a place for people to call in?
Yeah. So for the pet parent community, our biggest resource is the consult piece. So one of the big goals in that is to either help pet parents connect with their veterinary team. So if you're just having a hard time having that conversation, your vet just doesn't quite get it, or you feel afraid to kind of broach it, we can sort of be the intermediary. That's so awesome. We'll do a consult, make sure we understand what you want to accomplish as a pet parent. If you have a product you want to use already, like do an evaluation of it. We'll grab records from your clinic so we know what's going on with that case, and then kind of compile it, write it all together, and then send it back to you so you know kind of how to start on that treatment plan for your pet, but then also send it to your clinic so they know what's going on. That's so it's really just putting that team back together, because unfortunately the cannabis industry has created some rubs between pet parents and veterinarians, because veterinarians don't really know about the ECS. This is so new, right? Like this is just since the 1980s that we've known what this is. And so a lot of times pet parents feel like, oh my, that's not talking to me. And, they're not answering me. But a lot of times it's because they're just not comfortable. They just don't know or aren't comfortable
and
with
I think we come across that with a lot of modalities, right? Like if the practitioner is not comfortable with something, they're not going to recommend it.
Well, our oath is to do no harm. Yeah. Right? So if you don't know about it, then the no harm is, I want to be safe.
The no harm is don't do that, right? Because they're just like, there could be harm. There's risk in this because I don't know enough about it.
Every veterinarian has seen an intoxication. We have all seen an overdose come into the ER, and they're so miserable. Have you ever seen an intoxicated, like a marijuana intoxicated? They're just miserable. Like they're so high. Like they're so stoned, and they're just so afraid of light and sound.
Kind of funny.
Well, it is once they're bed, like, but they're just miserable and they pee everywhere and it's just a miserable experience for them.
No.
But that's really when they get into someone's stash, like a lot of particularly THC they ingest. That's not how they act whenever you're treating them therapeutically.
Yeah, no.
But that's what most veterinarians have seen. So when we hear marijuana or cannabis, it's like, I don't want to make my patient stoned, right? Like, I don't want to go that direction.
I think, I'm also a birth doula. So we see things through our lens, but we don't realize, I think a lot of the time that our practitioners have seen what we want go sideways. Right. And I always tell people that, like, they have their own experiences that are clouding how they and it forever will, because they have fear around
or they make the decision to say, okay, well, this doesn't seem to fit with what I'm seeing, so I'm going to explore it. And I mean, from the practitioner side, that's what I think our obligation is to our clients and to our patients is, okay, I don't understand it, but I'm going to make sure that I find out. Like, I'll get you the answer. And sometimes we see practitioners miss that piece, right? They'll say I don't want to do any harm, but there is also the obligation to then find the solution. And I think a lot of people are just stopping there because it is really intimidating. It can be, it's a lot, right? It's such a huge, vast system.
It is a huge, vast system. And I mean, we deal with that on the accounting end too. Like, people come to me and I'll be like, I don't think that's a thing, but I'm going to go find out.
Exactly. Right? Yeah, I'm going to figure it out for you.
And that's the kind of person you always want to work with, is the person that's just like, I don't think it's either like a no, like, that's not going to fly, or I'm actually going to go double check all this.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'll let you know if that's, what I'm telling you is not true.
Yes.
But you want those people who are open to, because cannabis isn't going anywhere.
Yeah. And you want to make sure that even outside of cannabis, that you and your practitioner fit well. Yeah. So if you are always just rubbing the wrong way, like nutrition, if you're not connecting on that side, or some of the, integrated modalities, it's not wrong to find a different veterinarian who fits with you, because everyone is just very... it's a good fit. Like, it's fine. It's not a big deal. Change your doctor.
It's just like picking a doctor. Yeah. Right?
You want to make sure that you match with them and your pet matches with them. Yeah. And that applies across the board.
I love that. It's really good advice. Okay. So what is on the horizon for veterinary cannabis?
Ooh, 2020 is going to be a super fun year. Very exciting.
I'm excited. So I went on the newsletter.
2020 is definitely going to be a policy year. So there is so much movement and so much just potential energy, mounding around cannabis and laws and all those, just the industry side of it. This will be a year when states, boards, VMAs really have to say something instead of sort of sitting in the background and being quiet. Unfortunately, that's kind of what a lot of boards, like our licensing boards, are just like, I don't have any comment, no comment. And our VMAs, our associations, are a little bit better, but also not that much better. And so it puts the practicing veterinarian in this really tight spot of, nobody knows what they should do or shouldn't do.
That is the exact same thing we're seeing in accounting with cannabis. They just like our board finally came out, I think, last year with some
guidance.
Yeah, with some guidance. Yeah. Hold on. Okay, it's just packages.
It's very funny to also, like, if you talk to an attorney, a cannabis attorney, they say the exact same thing. Like, originally their board said, no, you're not going to deal with a federally legal substance. But they, as a group, said, there's no way that we're letting our clients handle this on their own. Yeah. Right? Like, that's just not happening.
No, and it shouldn't be.
Yeah. And that's exactly the way it is.
It's kind of that do no harm thing, right?
Exactly.
Like,
now you're on the opposite side of it.
They need the experts to help them.
Because we see harm happening when veterinarians are not involved. So it's kind of the phrase that we use for that is just harm reduction education of, again, doesn't matter whether you want to actively work with cannabis. We need to be doing that. Here's the safety piece, like at least doing that portion, because our clients are figuring out on their own and feeling lost and feeling like they don't have a resource. And then our pets get the the downside, right? Exactly.
Jeez. So that's really cool. So policy. So you guys are going to be seeing policy coming through.
I think those are going to be really important. There's an international cannabis sort of association that's forming. I think that'll be really useful because it's a global topic, right? It has to be addressed much further than state boundaries or country boundaries, and that's really fun to be a part of. We have some really good colleagues in Canada, Brazil for sure. A lot of the other countries, Austria. There's a couple from a few in China. Just it's definitely a global.
It's emerging, and there's
issue.
Just really no way that it's going to stop doing what it's doing. It's been interesting to watch it spread, the legalization to spread across the United States even. And there's actually, I watch a lot of accounts in the cannabis industry because I just find it fascinating because it's not stopping.
Yeah, absolutely.
There's not going anywhere.
There's so much powerful research behind it, as well as the anecdotal reports of if you have stopped having seizures because of cannabis, you're going to want your family to experience the same thing, right? You're going to tell your friends about it, and we as humans are just so connected on that storytelling impression, especially in the veterinary world. It's not going anywhere. We just have to make sure we do it safely.
Yeah, when our dog had seizures, literally one of the first things was you should do CBD. And I was like, oh. Or I knew. I didn't even know how I knew.
Well, it's so prevalent.
But I was just I know CBD helps with seizures.
Yeah.
He still was on 2 meds, so I don't really know if it did much.
Yeah. Well, it did help him heal. Yeah, and it's a different paradigm than we work with a pharmaceutical. It is often because it's in conjunction with those other ones that it works well. It's not you have to use this one thing and nothing else. It's that ECS of the balancing act. It's how does it pull all of these different pieces together?
Right. Yeah. So he was on 2 meds, and then we also had him on the CBD, especially initially after he started having the seizures. And I really do feel like it helped him heal.
Yeah, absolutely. It has such incredible importance in neuronal health, in how the brain communicates with itself, just in the supporting cells around it, which can really be traumatized after a seizure. And if they're traumatized,
he was a mess.
Yeah, then they can't heal the neurons. It just all these are bound together. So when you're working on through the ECS, you see all these different systems kind of all right,
back online, fine.
All right, I'll talk to you again. And okay, I know what I'm supposed to do. That kind of thing.
That's really cool. All right, where are we? So tell us about your space Cultivate.
Yeah. So
the other thing you do.
the other piece.
One of those other things. You've got a few things.
But it's interesting to a topic because that's actually how cannabis became such a big piece of what we're doing right now. So we run a co-working community in sort of 38th and Kipling. So Northwest Denver is our big region, and we are the background manager, background support, office support for any of the mobile practitioners in the area. So if they're mobile rehab, acupuncture, GP, we have a lot of in-home euthanasia veterinarians and hospice veterinarians, just individuals who really aren't suited for a brick and mortar. We are sort of all those support systems that occur in a brick and mortar place. But that meant that their patients and their clientele were really asking about cannabis. I mean, that's the patient population whose owners are really, really interested in it.
And they're educated.
They're doing the research. All of our oncology patients, they've read all the articles, right? They've done all the research themselves. And so we found from our veterinarians that they were getting questions just in a force load, and they didn't have any answers to it. But my position allows me to be just a listener a lot of times of what's going on, what couldn't you solve on your own? And then Karen, my practice manager, and I just sit and problem solve it, troubleshoot it and see what we can do. So cannabis was a community problem. It was we don't know what to do as a group. So I had the time and opportunity to try to figure it out. So that's what kind of started our first symposium, 2017, and kind of just grown from there.
That's so awesome.
Cannabis is probably the biggest thing we do, but I love our co-working space, and it's just so much fun to have individuals come in, and sometimes they just come for coffee and a hug.
Yeah.
And that's all they need.
So you guys have created a community out of, people who don't really work in the traditional,
or wanted something different.
Yeah.
For whatever reason, some of it come out just for interest, and they want to do this specific house call basis, but let's be honest, a lot of us are very burnt out and have definitely dealt with compassion fatigue. And a lot of the people who come through our community are kind of right at that edge of, I'm either done, I'm totally finished, or I want to try something that's kind of house call that lets me connect with my patients in a different way. And so we actually do a lot of emotional rehab. We do we have a lot of services that we provide, but it's just a means to the end. Mostly it's rebuilding that community and making sure that people feel like they have cheerleaders. You can do it.
And people to help
like
them,
just
and
we're proud of you and we're happy for your success.
And outside eyes on their business, and helping them
basically anything they want.
Helping them be sustainable. And yeah, that's really interesting. I do find, as I talk to more veterinarians, and especially those that do mobile care, like they're just like, I get to decide how much I need, or how much I want. Like I really love what I do. I just can't do it 40, 60, 80, 100 hours a week anymore.
Or do it in the mindset that their maybe corporate-owned clinic kind of put them in. And they're not, it's not always like that. Like we know there's no black and white the world.
There's a whole spectrum.
But it is true that as we become more corporatized as an industry, it is harder for practitioners' heart and mind to kind of fit into that and really give the care, or the time is what it usually comes down to the patients that we want. And the biggest thing most people struggle with is, wait, I'm never going to be busy enough. I'm never going to have enough patients. But we also see pet parents reaching for that as well. They wanting to see one veterinarian, they wanting a longer appointment time, someone who really connects with them. So we see, especially in Colorado is a great state for it, a lot of market who's willing to say, yes, please come to my home. Like I'm willing to pay for that kind of boutique medicine, but this is what I want for my animal.
I want a relationship. I want you to see where they live. I want to see how, and then it's better care too when you have a better relationship.
Absolutely.
That's awesome. I love it. You just answered that question. So before I ask,
I was peeking at your paper.
I know you were. So before I ask my last question, what is the best place for people to find you?
Probably our website is the easiest. So veterinarycannabis.org is where we try to make just centralized, here's education, here's links to whatever you kind of need. We also try to pull in information from other people who are doing great education, like Canada has a great symposium. Other countries are kind of coming online, so we try to link to them.
Just kind of create a whole resource.
Yeah.
And then do you also have your practitioners, your certified practitioners on your website? So if people are looking for somebody?
So we don't at the moment because it's such it is still an iffy piece on the legal side.
Yeah. Oh, that makes
so
sense.
we like for people to connect with a person. So there's a really clear definition of what are your goals as a pet parent? Do you understand the legal landscape that really we're supporting your decision to use cannabis because we kind of have some legal boundaries still. So we don't list anybody's name, but people can just email and ask. And especially if you're in a particular state or country, finding you someone in person is our ideal.
That's what you want to do. That's awesome.
Yeah.
So you can email you guys.
Absolutely.
So if you're looking for a practitioner to help you, apply cannabis to your pet,
or just curious about it, like that's where we try to put all the online CE. We're going to be doing some fun online CE stuff in 2020. So it's going to, what we're learning increases so fast.
I love the science, but like we could talk science all day long.
It's so fascinating.
I love science. Okay, final question. What is the best place for a practitioner to start and learning more about including cannabis to their practice?
Great question.
Where do sciencey people go to find more science?
So one of the hard things about that is most of the science is in the human literature.
Yeah.
And it can be hard to pull it out if you're a busy veterinary practitioner. Just I don't even know where to go. So how we're trying to solve that is just to put some of the really foundational articles on our website, just to kind of start there and say, oh, this is cool. Okay, now I can read a little bit more. So I would actually say there, probably the website still, and pull off some of the articles that are just
because you've gone through all of them. Yeah, you guys are already teaching people
and curated. Like some of it's already old. Like if you just read all the cannabis articles you could find, some of it's very outdated, and
because
it was only done 3 years ago, right? And that's like crazy for like that doesn't happen in another realm at all. So it can be really frustrating to be like, there's a gazillion articles and I have no idea which to read.
You don't know where to start.
You only really need a couple of them. There's some good books that are going to be coming out, and then just finding, again, they're available on our website, but there are a lot of other good training resources, just sort of summaries of here's what you need to get started, handouts that you can put out in your clinic about here's how to choose a safe product, here's what you shouldn't do, just kind of stuff like that. So I would say that's kind of the best place to get your feet wet.
Because you guys just have those like basic resources.
Yeah, because then you can choose as a practitioner where you want to go from there. Right. But it's like, how do I even broach
So
this
let's
subject.
mitigate risk first. Like, let's get some good info.
Safety first,
you just
absolutely.
Read these articles, and here's some flyers.
Yes. And then now it kind of catches you on the coolness of the science. Like,
Yeah.
oh, now I want to know about this. And oh, I want to know about that.
Well, now I want to know. They're like, you're going to be like, Jeannie just signed up to be in cannabis.
That would be awesome.
Because I need more things, and
that would be awesome.
I need more things to do. But I love it because I'm a science geek.
It's fascinating. I mean, it really will change our world. When NASA starts researching the ECS, we will be an interplanetary species. Like, thinking about what the ECS does, it helps us adapt to new environments. Like some of the things that we're struggling with of being not on this planet. I really firmly believe that if we look at it in that direction, we'll be able to solve some of those problems.
We're going to be on Mars sooner than later, is what you're telling me.
Yeah, exactly.
That is just, my face is just like, what? Thank you so much.
You're so welcome.
I appreciate you so much.
Fun.
That was so fun.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for listening or watching. Be sure to subscribe on YouTube, iTunes, or wherever you prefer to listen. If you learned something and found some useful information to apply to your business today, please consider giving us a thumbs up and a review. Until next week, be abundant.